All right. Welcome back to Practify, the podcast where we go inside the minds of private practice owners who've successfully scaled their practice and are open to sharing the strategies and mindset behind their growth. Today's guest is someone who has built an inspiring brand by combining her personal story with a mission to change how one approaches nutrition. Kate Regan is the founder of Wholesome Chick Nutrition, a registered dietitian who has grown an audience of over 22,000 people online, and a practitioner who's redefining how nutrition care is delivered, from the one-to-one level to group programs and even mentoring other clinicians. Kate has created a business that's authentic, impactful, and thriving. So Kate, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
Of course, it's awesome to have you on. Now, Kate, so just to get right into things, you've obviously built a brand, an audience that so many practitioners admire. But obviously, before the programs, before the followers and all the recognition, there was obviously this early grind, right? So I want to rewind to those first days and hear what things looked like before the success. So I guess, Kate, what initially pulled you into the world of nutrition?
So I would say in my college years, I actually started out as a fashion major. And then about halfway through my college career, I started to have this interest in nutrition. And I didn't realize it at the time, but this interest was actually starting to become an obsession. And what I was dealing with was disordered eating, which would eventually develop into a full-blown eating disorder, a restrictive eating disorder where I was counting calories and obsessed about working out and the size of my body and what the scale said every single day. So that is when I started to learn more about switching my major to nutrition. And I did so in the second half of my college career. And I went on to become a dietitian. And over, I'm sure we'll get to this too, but over the course of my training and education to become a dietitian, I started to recognize, oh, I'm not necessarily approaching this in the healthiest way. I think I really need to work on my own relationship with food before I'm able to really help others with nutrition and well-being.
And how would you say you made that jump from almost being like someone who's in the position of being a patient to actually being someone who then helps patients, so a practitioner?
I had to do a lot of internal soul searching. I had to, really make sure that I was in a good spot in my own relationship with food, in my own mental health journey, so that I could then have a positive impact on others. Because what I didn't want to do was still be stuck in disordered thoughts and behaviors and then impacting someone else in a negative way and creating harm. So I really had to do a lot of internal work, get my own support. I started therapy and then really dove into the side of education around eating disorders and really how to help people, in a way that I figured out how to help myself. How do I translate that into then supporting other people who are struggling in this way as well?
And how long did that transition take from being a patient to becoming a practitioner? Like, would you say it took you longer to learn the skills of helping yourself, or would you say it took you longer to learn the skills of helping other people?
So, to be completely honest, I feel like it was almost happening simultaneously because my recovery was very much smack dab in the middle of my training and education to become a dietitian. So, it was almost happening simultaneously as I was, developing into a provider and a clinician. I was also kind of doing the own work on my own. So I don't know if I have an exact answer for how long that process took, but for my own recovery, I would say from start to quote unquote finish, not that recovery ever has like an end line or a finish line, but I would say it took me probably about 2 years to get to a place where I felt a lot more grounded in my own relationship with food. And then, that was probably towards the very beginning of my first job as a dietitian.
And on that note of your first job as a dietitian, like when you look back at all the training and the so-called traditional path that dietitians are taught to follow, was there anything that didn't quite sit right with you about it?
Yes, a lot of it didn't sit right with me about it. We are, what's the word I'm looking for? We are pushed into a trajectory that you have to complete a dietetic internship, which is a 1200 hour unpaid internship. So after you're finished with all of your course curriculum, you then go on to do this internship, and it's almost like a second degree, but you're not making any money. So a lot of times people have to have a job while they're doing this internship, which is basically a full-time job. And then another thing just about the curriculum and training itself to become a dietitian, a lot of it is very weight centric. So the way that I practice is weight inclusive and weight neutral. So I look at weight as a piece of data. I don't look at it as a diagnosis. I don't look at it as something that we necessarily need to use as a goalpost or a marker of progress. So the way that we're educated and trained in our dietitian programs is very much weight centric, meaning that weight is at the center of every recommendation that is made as a dietitian for the most part. How much you eat, what you eat, how much you're exercising, it all is usually tied to, is this person's weight in a quote unquote healthy range, or do we need to work to help them lose weight? So I take a more expansive approach and I look at the person as a whole and look at their habits, look at their behaviors. And that is very much not the way we are taught and trained in traditional programs in the United States.
Now, in those years of becoming a dietitian, aside from the internship and the difficulties that you faced, like you just touched on, were there any other specific challenges that kind of kept you up at night?
During the internship itself?
So aside from the internship,
Oh, aside.
over and
Mhm.
above that, were there any other like major concerns or red flags that kind of just gave you a bit of a headache about actually becoming a dietitian, and it kind of made you stop and question yourself?
It feels like a very important job. It feels like there is, especially in the beginning of your career, it feels like you are holding the health and wellness of the client or patient sitting in front of you in the palm of your hand. And there is a lot of sensitive topics that can come up because food and your relationship with food and your habits are not usually just about the food. There's a lot of other issues that come into play, and it almost feels like we have to toe the line of being a therapist, being a social worker. We're helping clients kind of work through other issues that are related to their emotions, their mental health, their access to food. So it feels like a very big, important job. And I just wanted to make sure that I was doing everything I could to do that job in the best way, and really, take care of my clients and the patients that were trusting me to do so.
So we've obviously touched on you being in the patient's shoes directly because you were that person yourself. We then skip a few years ahead to you during the years of internship. I want to skip a little bit even further. Now, how did the idea of the Wholesome Chick Nutrition like even come about?
Well, after I completed my internship, I was looking for a job and I found it very, very difficult to find a full-time job. So what I did, because I am a hustler at heart, what I did was piece together 4 to 5 part-time jobs. So I had a lot of different jobs. I was working in a hospital. I was working in two separate outpatient clinics. I was working as the assistant manager of a spin studio, a fitness studio. I was also teaching classes there, and then I was also doing freelance writing on the side. So I was a busy, busy person. And throughout my experience with all of these different careers, I think it was really helpful for me because I got to try on a lot of different hats at the same time and determine like, okay, which one is most intriguing to me. And throughout that time, the one thing that stood out to me was my position at these outpatient clinics that I had, because you got to develop a relationship with the patient and you got to see them on a regular basis and really see their progress, right? And you could see the impact that you were having on them. And I also really loved kind of that the side of food that is more emotional and is more psychological. And I found that I got to embrace counseling about those things in an outpatient setting. However, I didn't like the idea that my income and my time was solely dependent on someone else. So during COVID, actually, I moved back in with my parents and I was like, you know what? If there is ever a time to, you know, do something crazy and start my own business, now is the time to do it. So I decided to register for an LLC. And then I decided to start announcing on Instagram. I had a pretty small following at that time because I had been posting recipes and food related topics about food related topics since I was in college. So I had a small following, maybe about 2,000 people. And I was like, I'm going to leverage this platform and really see if I can gain some traction here by sharing that I started my own business and I'm now accepting clients for nutrition counseling. And it just kind of took off and it was really exciting. It was a really, stressful and overwhelming period of time starting your own business. For any clinician or provider listening to this, like, yes, it's going to feel like one of the hardest things you will ever do, but it is also the most rewarding thing you will ever do. And I am so, so grateful that I decided to bet on myself 5 years ago, because it got me to the place that I'm in right now.
And when you did make that decision to actually go ahead and bet on yourself, when things, as you mentioned, quote unquote, started getting some sort of traction, was there like a specific moment where you kind of said to yourself, like, this could actually work, like this could actually grow into a massive business?
Totally. Yeah. So I was also working per diem in a local hospital at the time because I still needed some sort of income while I was building this business that couldn't quite provide me a full-time salary at the beginning. So I was working per diem in a hospital and I did not like it. It was just not for me. I know some people really love clinical as dietitians. It just was not for me. So I actually moved out of my parents' house and into my own apartment in Philadelphia. And it wasn't necessarily me saying, okay, I think this could actually work. It was more so, okay, now this needs to work because I have bills to pay. I have my own rent to pay. And now I need to figure out how to make this work. And I knew I wasn't happy in my clinical position. And then things did start to pick up on social media. I went viral on TikTok for the first time. And that's
Oh.
when I really started getting a more consistent influx of inquiries from clients. And the moment I said, okay, this has to work, it's almost like the universe said, okay, we're right here with you. We're going to help you make this work. Because that's when social media started to really pick up for me.
And at what stage, like, I just feel like so many practitioners out there, they're very focused on helping patients, which is very good because theoretically, like, that's what they're there for, right? That's their job. They're there to help patients. But I feel like for one to run a successful practice, they kind of have to have that shift where they stop seeing themselves as just as a practitioner and start somewhat embracing the role of being a business owner. So, like, at what stage did you kind of see yourself make that shift?
I didn't see that shift until I hired a business coach and I started to understand, oh, I can't just focus on how to be a good clinician and a good provider within the session. I now need to figure out how to make this a sustainable business model outside of the sessions as well. And so I hired a business coach, and I was in this kind of group coaching community where I started learning from other dietitians in the field who had built really successful business models. So that mentorship was huge for me in helping me kind of make that transition into the mindset of not just a dietitian, but now a business owner, and figuring out not just how to be a good dietitian, but also how to market, how to sell myself, how to brand, how to network, how to build systems, how to create offers that people actually want and they actually need. So it was actually really exciting for me because I figured out and discovered that I love that side of business. And I actually really, it was fascinating to me learning about marketing and learning about human buying behavior and learning about creating offers and being able to have that sales communication skill to make people see the value in those offers, because you can have a good offer, but if you're not able to communicate that to your audience, no one's actually going to buy, and that means you can't actually run a business, because if you don't have people buying, there is no business.
So if you could sit down with the year one Kate and just share one piece of advice about business or running a practice, what would it be?
Tell everyone about it. Do not downplay the moment you decide to start a business. Because what I did was I treated it very much as a quote unquote side hustle. And I was pretty quiet about it. I was pretty fearful of telling people that I had started a business because I was kind of embarrassed at that time. I only had 2 or 3 clients. It was very, very small. But in my opinion, I delayed my success by doing that because I didn't step into my power, and I didn't step into trusting myself to build a business that could be successful. So I downplayed it. And when anyone would ask me, "Hey, like what are you up to these days in your career?" I would be like, "Oh, I'm working in a hospital, and then, I see a couple of clients on the side sometimes." I was not leading with, "Oh, I own my own business, and then I work in the hospital a couple of days a week." I was not leading with that, and I was not embracing my ability to be a successful business owner. So what I would say to you is, do not downplay what you want and what you want to manifest for yourself. Because if you want to be a successful business owner, say that from day one. Say, "I own my own business," and tell everyone you know about it, friends, family, people that you meet in the grocery store. Marketing in and networking is absolutely essential in those early stages, and just telling everyone that will listen to you about it.
So over and above telling every soul and every single person and family member and friend that you know about what you're doing, do you feel that that luck has been some part like a role in getting you to where you are today? Would you say it's purely been you putting yourself in the position, making it happen day in, day out? Or would you say luck has somewhat influenced that?
It depends on the day that you ask me and how I'm feeling in that moment, but I would say that I used to attribute my success on social media to luck. And I used to say, "Oh, I'm just getting lucky that I'm going viral," or, "I just used the right hashtag, so I'm getting lucky that people are being exposed to my content." But now, with the confidence level I have and the kind of consistency and the repeatability of what I've created, I now see that there is a strategy, and I've always had a strategy, but now I'm able to put it into words. So could it be a little bit of luck? Sure. But in this moment, looking back at the history of my social media platform and the growth that I've been able to achieve, no, I don't think it's luck. I think it is consistency. I think it's a lot of effort. I think it's intentionality. And I think it's making really smart moves.
So, Kate, on that note, I just want to shift gears really quickly. So, social media is obviously where a lot of practitioners get stuck, right? They see the potential, but it often rarely translates into actual paying clients. So, You've obviously figured out how to bridge that gap. So first things first, like at what point in your journey did you realize that, for example, Instagram or TikTok, just social media as a whole, wasn't just a place to post and update about your life, but it could actually be a tool to bring in clients and actually grow your practice?
I would say when I started talking about my offers more and I started realizing that people actually wanted to know about them. Because in the beginning, and I'm sure a lot of business owners in the beginning of their journey feel like this, they feel a bit shy about using social media to talk about their offers because they feel like this is a free resource. So people are just coming to kind of get free information from me. They probably don't want to buy from me, but that mindset is really going to hold you back. And talking about your offer over and over and over again is going to show you that people want to know about these things. They want to hear about it and they're interested because, yes, they're following you for free content, but free content can only get them so far in creating change in their own lives. So they want to know what the next step is. They want to know, how do I hire you? Because the more that you're showing the value of your services and the more that you're able to showcase the transformations you provide to your current clients, the more people want to know, how do I do that? How can I hire you? How can I work with you? So talking about your offers over and over and over again is something that you need to embrace, and you need to be really comfortable getting uncomfortable, and you need to kind of embrace being a little bit annoying, because sometimes people fall into that trap too of, I don't want to post so much about my offers, I don't want to feel annoying. But again, that's a mindset that's going to hold you back. That's a huge mental block because then people won't know about your offers. You need to talk about them all the time because then you're going to start to notice, oh, people want to hear about this.
Have you experienced any downsides of giving away too much free value, or do you only see the upsides of it?
I only see the upsides of it. I give a ton of free value on social media because as a business owner, I know that that is going to be attractive to a lot of people who are maybe in the earlier stages of buying. They're maybe just slightly considering it. They're saying, I want to see what's out there. Maybe, they're just learning about these problems that they're experiencing and they're just doing a little bit of initial research. But free value and free content doesn't actually help them implement in their own lives because there's no individualization there, right? There's no customization. So they still are going to need to hire you to get them the change that they want to see, right? So in giving away free value, I'm giving them a little taste test of what they have the ability to do with me in nutrition coaching. But that's not the whole picture. And no one has ever created real change in their lives by Googling things, by, using ChatGPT. No one has ever created real change in their lives because they need that human interaction and they need that relationship because change really happens in a trusting relationship. It doesn't happen by piecing together free content that you found on a podcast or free content that you found on social media. It happens when you're in a relationship with someone and you're able to see, okay, this is how they're able to make it make sense in my life instead of just taking cookie cutter generalized advice from someplace online.
And what kind of content do you find actually converts into paying clients? Like how does content that converts differ from content that just gets likes and engagement?
Sure. Yeah, there is a big difference between kind of growth content and then conversion content, right? Growth content, I typically use a strategy that will create a lot of engagement by causing a little bit of controversy, right? And of course, this is all with integrity, and I always stand behind everything that I say, but I lead with a lot of topics I know people have really strong opinions about. So that's going to create and generate more eyes on your page, more interest in what you're doing, and it's going to get you a lot of exposure. But the difference between that and conversion content, there's a couple of different approaches, but really at the heart of it, you want to show people this is the problem that you're struggling with. This is how we can help you. And this is the outcome that you're going to get from working with us. So really, it's all about value, right? And the way that you kind of hook them in could be with emotion. It could be with logic, right? There's different types of buyers. So some people are more attracted to emotional content of, for example, I work with a lot of women who have disordered eating, right? And when you struggle with disordered eating, it's really hard for you to eat spontaneously or, eat fun foods. And maybe they're missing out on having ice cream with their kids, right? And maybe that is really sad for them every time they have to say no to having ice cream with their kids because they're struggling with disordered eating. So speaking to that can help them see, I really don't want to be like this anymore. And then I show them the value of how I can help them. There's also logical buyers, right? Buyers who want to see, okay, what's the strategy here? When I sign up to work with you, what do I actually expect is going to happen, right? What is the process you're going to take me through? So I have a lot of content about that too. And showing them, if those people aren't necessarily emotional buyers, but logical buyers, here's what you can actually expect. And you can make that decision with, using critical judgment, critical thinking on if this offer is the best value for you and the right fit for you, right? So really kind of showing, speaking to both kinds of buyers. And then also overall, right, coming back to the value. What is this going to offer them in their lives that they are looking for, that they feel like they need, that they feel like they really want, and they see that it's worth an investment? How is this going to change their lives?
Quick question on content. Quantity or quality?
Can I say both?
Go for it. Explain yourself.
I really want to say both. I hear this argument all the time on social media of should I just be pumping out, 15 videos a day, or should I focus on spending all of the time that it would take me to create those 15 videos and put it into one really high quality video? And here's the thing, I've seen people be successful with both strategies, but I think there's also kind of extreme ways to think about both, right? Because if you're falling into the trap of just pumping out a ton of videos, maybe they're not going to be super great in getting people to actually want to follow you, or maybe they're not going to be super successful in, that conversion that we're talking about. Maybe you're not offering a ton of value because you're just trying so hard to pump out whatever's coming to mind. But if you're on the other extreme and you're just focusing on quality, that might be holding you back from posting enough because you might be focused so much on making each video so perfect that you're not getting enough content out there in the first place. So I like to take a little bit of a blended approach. And I really think it's an individual strategy depending on the person. How much time do they have on their hands to be creating content? Right? What's the purpose of their content? What's the purpose of their platform? Because those strategies might be different, right? So me personally, again, I kind of take a blended approach and I focus just more on consistency. It's not necessarily getting as many videos out there as I possibly can. I really just focus on being consistent, and whether that is posting a few times a week or once a day. I never go to an extreme of posting like multiple times a day, but there usually is some sort of consistency in the rhythm that I'm posting. However, at the same time, I also want to make sure that every video I'm putting out there is high quality, not just in the content that I'm creating, but also like the lighting, right? And the text that I'm putting on screen, and being strategic with the production and the editing of the video too is really helpful. So kind of taking a blended approach and not going to either extreme, I think, is where most people would probably fall. And what I would encourage you to do if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, like, I'm feeling overwhelmed with content, where do I start? I would just start with being consistent, whatever that means for you, whether that is one time a week or whether that is every single day. Focus on something that feels sustainable for you because you don't want to burn out. And then also make sure that you are proud of the videos that you're posting, right? You're proud of the value that you're providing in each of these videos, because you want to look back at your social media and be like, okay, yeah, I don't feel the need to go back and like delete certain videos or edit certain videos. You want to be proud of the content that you're posting. So that's my advice to anyone who's feeling, stuck between the quality versus quantity debate.
And on that note, like being a dietitian is already like so hectic. Like you've got all these different cases and like you've got enough headache, right? But now you've got to create content. So how do you balance taking care of your patients and then coupling that with actually somewhat being a creator on social media?
It's been a very difficult balance to strike because I have almost two branches of my business. One is client facing, and then the other is content creation, working with brands, food and wellness brands. So it's taken me a bit of time to kind of find a rhythm and kind of a time split that works for me. And mostly what I've found to be successful is time blocking and kind of scheduling the time on your calendar where you are going to be creating content and creating a few videos at a time, right? So being a little bit strategic with my time and kind of cautious with the way that I'm using time, because I have my calendar in front of me. I have all of my client calls scheduled in. Then I have to find some white space, right? And that could be different week to week. Oftentimes it's on Mondays, so that's typically when I'll create the most content. But whatever it works for, however it works for you, right? Finding that white space every single week to just dedicate to content creation can be really helpful in compartmentalizing and not reaching that level of burnout because you feel like in every waking moment you're trying to figure out how to squeeze content creation in. If this is something that you want to dedicate time to and really gain some traction with and really, really focus on growing your platform, you need to treat it just as sacred as those client calls, right? You need to treat that time just as sacred and you need to have dedicated time for it, or else you're going to burn out or it's just not going to get done.
I just want to take 2 steps back, just quickly. What would be your definition of an offer? Like this crazy thing on the internet, marketing, like simply put, what is an offer? Let's just clear the air on that.
An offer is a service that you are providing for a client that they are purchasing from you.
So now we have the definition of an offer, right? And just now you touched on when marketing or trying to advertise yourself or somewhat sell yourself, essentially what you want to do is kind of expose a patient's current situation, position your service as the solution, and then show the desired outcome, their desired outcome specifically. But now, obviously, this niche and this industry, there's things that are borderline ethical and not ethical. Like I can't go out there and be like, look, my patient Lucy or whoever just lost like 58 kilograms in the last like 12 weeks or whatever, something crazy like that. So I guess how do you go about showing potential patients what their possible outcome or transformation could actually look like?
Great question. So there's two different approaches. And one is using almost like an avatar and using kind of creating a client. If you're not using like an actual real testimonial, right? Creating a client that kind of depicts the average client that you work with, right? So maybe it's not a true real client, but it's saying, here is an example of a client that we would typically work with, right? And we see these struggles over and over and over again in the majority of our clients. This is something that we're really good at helping them with. So it can be a little bit more of like a vague approach. You can actually create the avatar, right? Like, this is my client, Claire, or whatever it is, and say, this is an example of what a typical client that we work with comes to us struggling with, right? The second approach, and Anonymity is very important when you are working with clients, right? Especially in the health and wellness space, in the medical field, because you need to be HIPAA compliant. So you can't just be blasting patient information on social media. However, what I typically do before I'm sharing a client testimonial, ask permission, obviously. If you're going to use their name, you absolutely have to ask permission. But typically I'll ask, if a client shares a win with me, I'll shoot them a quick message and say, is this okay if I share this on social media? I've never gotten anyone to say no to me, just because it is always anonymous and, they want to celebrate themselves too. So it's kind of a win-win, right? But always, always asking permission is definitely the way to go when you are showcasing a client testimonial.
So I've had a look and I've scrolled through your social media pages quite thoroughly. And one thing that I see that really sticks out is your storytelling ability. So I guess how does storytelling, like what role does it play in helping you connect with patients and just essentially build authority online in a very authentic way? Like how does that help?
It helps patients to see themselves as someone who would benefit from your services, right? So if you are kind of sharing a story, you're kind of speaking to that emotional buyer and saying, "Hey, this is probably where you're at right now. This is where my one client was at when they started working with us. And this is the trajectory that we took them through," right? So it kind of helps them to visualize themselves in the position of hiring us, right? So as from a business owner perspective, that's really helpful with marketing because you want your client to see themselves as a potential buyer, right? Oh, this story is really speaking to me. I really resonate with that person. I'm in that exact position right now, or I'm in a similar position right now. And this person really benefited from working with Kate's team. This person really benefited from these services, and look at where they are right now, right? Look at this transformation that was able to happen for them. That's possible for me too. So it's also showing them the outcomes that are possible if they choose to work with our team.
Earlier on, probably about 10, 15 minutes ago, you mentioned that your very first video that went viral was on TikTok. But if I look you up now on Instagram, so you've obviously gone viral on TikTok. You've got like 23,000 followers on Instagram. As a practitioner, how do you go about selecting a platform that could reach your audience and attract the type of clients that you want to be attracting? Or do you kind of just post on every platform and kind of hope your ideal client profile kind of sees that and shoots you up on your offer?
I think it's trial and error. I think it really depends on the provider, their personality, their preferences, the amount of time they have to spend on content creation. For me, I see TikTok as very much kind of like a visibility platform. It's not necessarily a super big conversion platform for me. Instagram is mostly a conversion platform for me. So my reach on TikTok is much, much, much larger. I have over 300,000 followers on TikTok, but where I'm selling the most is on Instagram, just because Instagram does a better job at creating more of a community. It's a better platform for creating community, while TikTok is more of a visibility platform and you have the potential to go viral more often, even if you're posting the same kind of content.
All right, Kate. So before we dive into how you expanded beyond one-to-one clients, which I really want to touch on because I think it's super interesting how you've managed to scale your income without necessarily scaling your time. So what I want to do quickly is I just want to play a quick game called Rate That Move. Essentially, I'll throw out some common social media and business decisions that practitioners generally make, and you just give me a score out of 10, like no explanations, just your true gut reaction. All right.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay. Post in 3 times a day to hack the algorithm.
3 out of 10.
Sharing personal stories about your own struggles.
10 out of 10.
Put in money into branding and photos early on.
5 out of 10.
Post in free tips every day without a call to action.
0 out of 10.
Launching a program or course before you're fully booked on a one-to-one level.
5 out of 10.
Outsourcing content creation.
3 out of 10.
Building an email list alongside social media.
10 out of 10. 11 out of 10.
Collaborating with other practitioners on Instagram Lives.
7 out of 10.
Showing up authentically instead of trying to look like every other practitioner online.
10 out of 10.
And then the last one, focusing on engagement instead of conversions.
3 out of 10.
Cool, there we go. All right, Kate. So you obviously didn't stop at the one-to-one level. You've built group programs, live courses, and even consults for other clinicians. So for most practitioners, knowing when and how to expand beyond the one-to-one level it's a massive question mark. And it often leaves them feeling very overwhelmed and just doubtful about the whole process. So what was the tipping point for you when you realized that one-to-one work alone wasn't sustainable for you anymore?
When our calendars were full and I had reached my limit with the amount of one-on-one clients I was able to or willing to accept. Because if you think about it, each client for a one-on-one call is taking up an hour of your time, most of the time, depending on how long your sessions are. My sessions are between 45 and 60 minutes. So that means within those 45 to 60 minutes, I'm only able to reach one client, and I'm only able to make income for that one client. So when I reached my capacity and the other dietitian working for me had also reached her capacity, I said, okay, in order to continue to reach more clients and scale without putting a ton more time on our calendars, group coaching really is the next best step. It's the only next step.
Do you feel that you could have the same impact on a patient in a group program or group setting environment versus a direct one-to-one consultation, for example?
I think it's just different. I think both of those impacts are very, very valuable, and both offers provide different types of support, but they're just different. With a one-on-one client, you're able to connect with them a little bit deeper, and you're able to build trust more quickly, and you're also able to individualize for the entire session, right? Based off of their needs, their preferences, their lifestyle, their goals. In a group setting, you are getting one-on-one support, at least in our group coaching. You do get moments of one-on-one support and individualization. However, it's not going to be for the entire call because there are typically, 4, 5, 6 other people on that call who also might have similar questions that we need to get to. However, what's different in a group setting is that you're also getting community support, and there's huge value in that as well. So yes, it's different, but I wouldn't necessarily say one is better than the other. It really just depends on the type of person you are and what kind of support you prefer. Some people absolutely flourish in a one-on-one setting. Some people flourish in a group setting because they really value connecting with other people who are going through the same thing, working on similar goals, and they're able to get support that maybe they don't have in their outside lives.
Do you think there's ever a downside to having that community and that accountability? Have you ever seen patients crack from them being almost in that position where they feel quite pressurized and just overwhelmed by the group around them and the environment?
It doesn't happen very often, but I've definitely had a couple of group cohorts where maybe one person decides that it's actually not the best fit for them and that they're actually recognizing that they might need to do some type of different coaching for where they're at in their journey. because again, my niche is disordered eating and eating disorders. So if someone is joining this group and then they're kind of looking around like, oh, my behaviors and my medical status is in a much more severe place than the other members of this group, I don't think this is the best fit for me, then we'll decide to go into one-on-one coaching instead. But yeah, it's a big decision. And, it really, again, depends on the person and their personality and where they're at on their journey. A lot of people, most people who decide to do group coaching have either done some sort of group therapy or group coaching before, and they know they would benefit from this style, or they are someone who is a little bit more like extroverted and they like to talk to people, and they really do embrace community in other ways in their life. So really, it depends on your personality, really.
Kate, what mistakes did you make in delivering group programs early on, and how would you kind of avoid that now?
In our early iterations of our group coaching programs, I don't think we provided enough of that one-on-one support. I think I was going into it very much with a mindset of this is education versus this is coaching. So in my early days with group coaching, it was very much a lecture-based format of me talking for 60, 75 minutes. Of course, people would chime in with questions here and there, but there wasn't a whole lot of coaching going on. And that's the feedback that we were receiving in the beginning, that there wasn't really enough space for them to receive that one-on-one support, ask questions, kind of connect with the other people in the group like they thought they would be doing in the sessions, just as they would outside of the sessions in like a group chat. So how we've changed over the course of the years is to implement a couple of calls that are just almost Q&A style and almost a mini version of a one-on-one session within that group session, so that they are also still getting the coaching that they are craving and desiring in combination with the education and the lecture-based format. So it's more of a hybrid style now, and there's a lot more room within the calls for them to talk to each other, for them to talk to us, the coaches, and really figure out how to start creating change versus just learning and absorbing information and not doing anything with it.
Tell us about your intuitive eating jumpstart course. Firstly, like, why did you design it as a live 4-week course? And like, how does that format help?
So this offer was created for the person who is on the fence about intuitive eating, who thinks they like intuitive eating or they want to embrace intuitive eating, but they're not ready to make an investment in a longer form group coaching format or one-on-one coaching. So this is really to capture those people who are in the earlier stages of in their intuitive eating journey, and they just want to test the waters almost and see if this is a good fit for them before committing to something that's a bit more of an investment financially and a bit more of an investment of their time. So this is again for the people that I wasn't capturing in my 12-week group coaching or my one-on-one coaching. I knew there was a market for those people that were just kind of watching. They wanted to learn a bit more. There wasn't really a space to funnel them into. So that's why I created it as a shorter format, right? 4 weeks to the average person doesn't sound like a huge commitment. It's 1 month of their time. And also financially, it's a little bit less of a risk, right? You're not committing to something that's 3 months long or, a one-on-one coaching program, which is more expensive. It's a bit more budget friendly for those people who are still figuring out if intuitive eating is the right next step for them.
So over and above the intuitive eating jumpstart course, you've obviously also added the clinician case consults. What made you step into that mentorship space?
Oh, because I love it. I love it so much. I have so much fun doing it. And the moment I decided, okay, I'm going to take this seriously, the moment more inquiries started coming in, it was crazy. It was almost like I was describing before. Once I made the decision, the universe was like, okay, here it is. So it's just something that I feel really passionate about because people had been reaching out every so often over the past few years, kind of watching me grow my audience, kind of seeing the business I've been able to build, and they would inquire like, "Hey, I'd love to learn from you," or "Hey, I have a question about XYZ." And I didn't really have like a formal offer to put them into. I would just kind of answer their questions over Instagram or over email. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start to value my own time a little bit more here, and start to create an offer, a formal offer that people can purchase to learn from me, about counseling, about client retention, about business development, about social media growth. So it's a really exciting next chapter for me, that I'm super pumped about stepping into, because I feel like I do have so much to share. And I love talking to other providers. I love learning from other providers, and I love seeing the different ways that people do things. And now I'm excited to kind of, be that mentor for someone else to learn about the way that I do things. And it's just something that's fun for me. It's really fun for me.
So now, purely from a business perspective, how has diversifying your offers changed your revenue? One, stability, two, predictability, and then also the client reach.
Yeah, so I'll start with client reach. We have absolutely been able to impact way more clients now that we have a variety of different offers outside of one-on-one coaching, because one-on-one coaching isn't necessarily the right fit for everyone, because based off of time, based off of finances, based off of learning styles, some people don't want or need a one-on-one coaching relationship. It benefits a lot of people, don't get me wrong. It's one of my favorite things that we do. However, group coaching does allow us to reach a larger population, a larger demographic, versus just one-on-one coaching. So we have had way more consistent, a way more consistent caseload now that we do offer group coaching. And going back to kind of the first part of that question, um, in terms of revenue, profitability, as a business owner, since we've started group coaching, I have been able to pay myself a consistent amount every single month for the past 2 years. So even if revenue is shifting a little bit, it's never so drastic that I'm not able to predict my own income based off of that. So it really does kind of even things out and cushion a little bit of that, variability in income, so that it is more predictable and it is more reliable. In addition to that, with something like a 12-week group coaching program, you're also able to predict for the next 3 months, this is the amount that I'm making off of this group program, right? So you're able to kind of forecast a bit more into the future instead of just going month to month and worrying about, okay, am I going to make the same amount next month, and having no visibility there, right? That monthly recurring revenue is super important to provide a bit of stability in your income.
If a practitioner is listening that wants to add a group, a program, a course, but just feels stuck, what's one piece of advice you'd give them that they should take to just get started?
I would say stop making every decision so serious and so big, because if you do that and you kind of get all worked up in your head about it, you're never gonna pull the trigger, right? You're never gonna take that first step. You have to make a decision that, I'm just gonna see what happens here, right? It doesn't have to be so serious and so big. And you need to trust yourself more, right? You need to trust yourself that, this is an offer that people need. This is an offer that people want. And this is an offer that I'm excited about, right? That's another part of it. You have to make sure that you're excited about it, because if you're not excited about it, no one else is going to get excited about it. So you have to trust yourself, and you have to stop, building it up to be so big and heavy in your head. Have a little bit of fun with it. It's okay for business to feel fun and easy. It doesn't all have to be so serious all the time.
All right. So, Kate, we've obviously now covered how you built on social media, how you expanded beyond one-to-ones, But obviously, none of that works or comes together without the right mindset, right? So now, for most practitioners, the real battle isn't just strategy. It often comes down to how they think about themselves, their value, and obviously their business, right? So, Kate, I guess when you first started putting yourself out there on social media and stuff like that, did you ever struggle with confidence or the thought of what people would think of you?
Totally, 110%. I remember vividly to when I first started creating content and like taking my business a bit more seriously. Like I was losing followers in the beginning because people were like, wait, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't why I followed you in the first place. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is kind of weird. And so that was a huge like confidence drainer for me. And I started like panicking. I was like, oh my God, am I being annoying? Do people not really want to hear about this? Am I doing the wrong thing here? But I kept going. You have to decide to keep going despite what other people are going to think about you because everyone's going to have an opinion, right? And in the beginning, I very much doubted myself. And going back to what I said earlier about, being proud of your decision to start a business and not downplaying it as some sort of side hustle, like step into that, right? And be proud of yourself and post as if you're speaking to the person who needs your services. Don't post for all of the people who are like your friends or family or the people who don't really understand what you're doing. Post as if you are speaking directly to the person who will get what you're saying and who needs what you are offering, right? So yes, there's probably going to be a little bit of self-doubt in the beginning and it's going to take some time to build confidence. And you can even see like if you go back all the way to when I first started creating content, even in my voice, even in my tone, even in my language, I am a million times different now because I speak with authority and I speak with confidence. Even if I still do have imposter syndrome, which I do, a lot of business owners do, I still say it with a sense of assuredness that kind of builds my confidence up from there.
What's the biggest limiting belief, or rather the most common limiting belief that you see practitioners falling into time and time again?
That they are not doing as good of a job as they should be. That they
And
are, oh, go ahead.
on that note of not doing a job as good as they should be, like how do you even overcome that? Like, where do you go from there?
Well, I think there's a couple of different ways that you can approach it. If one is based off of like feedback, right? If you are a more logical person, maybe you do want to start collecting more regular feedback from the person that you are supporting, from the people that you are supporting, because that will give you some insight into how you are actually helping people, right? And then if you are kind of wanting to dig more into the side of mindset, right? You have to remember that everyone starts somewhere, right? And you can't know everything and you can't be an expert about everything. And even the people that you look up to, the people who you feel like are light years ahead of you in their career, they also had to start somewhere, right? They also had to take the first step and feel uncertain and feel like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here in order to get to the place that they are now. So don't take that as a sign that you should stop. If you are having these feelings, they're super normal, but it isn't an indication that you aren't actually doing a good job or that you shouldn't keep going. It's just feedback for you that, this is a stepping stone for you, right? And that you need to work on your confidence and work on your ability to trust yourself to continue to get better.
Do you have any mentors or business coaches?
I do. Yeah, I work closely with a business coach that I have had on and off for the past few years, and she's wonderful.
And on that note of her being your business coach, it's just quite intriguing. I just want to ask, was it something that you were looking for at the time, or did you kind of just fall into it and like it happened to come at the right time?
That's a great question. I would say it was something that I was looking for because I had some really big decisions to make in my business every single time I've hired her. I've had some really big decisions to make in my business. And it might have been a time where I was feeling a little bit uncertain about how to take those next steps. Because as a dietitian, you don't learn how to run a business. You don't learn anything about business or marketing or sales in your training and education. So this is something that as a business owner, I've had to seek out on my own. And this business coach, her name is Jo White. She's fabulous. She also is a dietitian. So I was like, okay, she's going to understand exactly the path that I've had to take to get here. And she's going to understand the unique barriers and challenges that I'm facing. So it was kind of a no-brainer to hire her to help me in those business decisions.
As your audience and business grew, how did you kind of set boundaries to avoid burnout and avoid putting yourself in that very position?
That is such a great question. And I think I have a little bit of a controversial opinion on this. You hear a lot of business owners who are well seasoned, business owners who have been entrepreneurs for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And they'll say things like boundaries are super important and you need to protect your time and you need to protect your peace. But I've never met a business owner who hasn't had to hustle so incredibly hard in the beginning that boundaries weren't possible. So for me in particular, at the start of my business, I was seeing clients at all hours. Anytime they wanted me to see them, I'd see them. I saw some clients on weekends when I really didn't want to be working weekends. Like I kind of was bending over backwards. If someone wanted a discount, I would give them a discount, right? So there is a little bit of like a grind that I see as necessary in the beginning of building a business that I don't know any successful business owner who hasn't had to go through. So I think boundaries come as you get a little bit more faith and a little bit more confidence in your business model, and you do start to see things working. And you're like, okay, I can now create the business and kind of adjust the business to look a little bit more, have a little bit more work-life balance and look a little bit more like the way I want it to look, right? So now in my business, I do not bend over backwards for people, no matter what time of day they want to schedule. I take Fridays off, so I don't see clients on Fridays ever. And that is a very hard boundary that I hold because that is my time to do admin work. That is my time to rest and recover, since this is a profession that can be emotionally draining at times. So boundaries, I don't see them as like super, super possible in the beginning of starting a business. However, as time develops, they are essential. They are essential for preventing burnout. So eventually, yes, they do become a non-negotiable, because if you keep bending over backwards for people and you keep kind of pushing your own limits, then it won't feel sustainable and you'll feel like I can't possibly keep this up for the rest of my life. So boundaries around time, boundaries around the cost of your services, boundaries around what kind of services you want to offer, all of those things are really, really important as you go on in business.
What's one personal habit that you've had to adopt in order to become a successful business owner?
This might sound a little bit woo-woo, but meditation. I have been meditating consistently for probably the past 5 years, around the time that my business started. And this might not have been the answer you were expecting, but it's something that I see as so essential to my mental health while running a business. Because I am someone who takes things personally a lot of the times. And there are a lot of no's in business. There are a lot of rejections on a consistent basis. So how I've learned to improve my resiliency and improve the way that I'm able to stay regulated, even when I'm thrown off my game a bit, is coming back to this consistent meditation practice. And it just makes me feel so good. And, I know meditation isn't for everyone, but if you can find something like that honestly is not even related to business, right? Something you might not learn in school, but something that makes you feel like you're at home, something that makes you feel like you can totally like tune into your body and feel grounded and feel regulated. Do that on a daily basis as a non-negotiable, as part of your business practices.
What are your thoughts on exercise as a practitioner? Like, do you believe a strong body is a strong mind?
Absolutely. Yes, I do. I do believe that movement is incredibly healing. I have worked in the fitness industry for probably 6 or 7 years now, maybe even more, either as an instructor or as an assistant manager or just at the front desk. Lots of iterations of my fitness career journey. But I do see it as something that is essential for, and helps you build skills that you need in running a business, right? You need to be able to support yourself physically and mentally in order to create a sustainable business.
Kate, you shared so much about your journey, the mindset, the strategy. Now, what I want to do is give the listeners a clear picture of what you're currently building right now and how they could potentially learn from you if they'd be interested and if it is potentially a good fit. So, Kate, first things first, can you kind of walk us through the different offers that you currently run?
Sure. So if you are a provider or a clinician and you are looking to refer your clients somewhere, we have one-on-one coaching, and then we have two different forms of group coaching. We have our 4-week live group coaching program called Intuitive Eating Jumpstart. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. And we also have a longer form group coaching. It's also live. It is 12 weeks, so 3 months. And all of those programs are geared towards helping people learn to eat for their health without dieting, embrace intuitive eating, and have a healthier relationship with food. If you are a clinician yourself and you're looking for support in your business, in growing your social media, in developing better counseling skills or client retention skills, I also offer case consultation and private practice mentorship for clinicians. So whether you are a dietitian or a therapist or a nurse or a physical therapist or a doctor, you can come to work with me in these sessions to learn more about developing offers for your business, marketing these offers, communication skills, and sales communication skills, growing your social media and your visibility, and then also diving into counseling skills around difficult client cases that you might be facing in that moment, which then leads to better client retention because when you are providing your client with better outcomes, they want to stay with you for longer periods of time, which then means more income and revenue for you and your business.
So I'm going to touch on the clinicians now, but first things first, the clients. Like, what transformations do your one-to-one clients typically see, like beyond the numbers on a scale?
So, typical outcomes for our clients include improved blood work. So, if they are someone with diabetes or high cholesterol, we are working to bring those numbers into a normal range. We typically see better energy levels, we see lower stress levels, we see a better relationship with food, which means better mental health. We see more connectedness with their body. So, embracing listening to their hunger and fullness cues instead of following a really strict diet plan. And we also see a better relationship with movement as well. So, as you were talking about, movement is super important as a business owner, but it's also important just for the average person, right? And really, really important for health outcomes.
And then, as we touched on, you obviously also work with clinicians. So, how do those sessions and that work usually impact their confidence in practice?
Huge. I mean, it has a huge impact. They are able to show up better as not just a clinician and feel more confident in their counseling skills, but they're also able to show up as a more confident business owner, which again is like two separate things, right? Two different sides of your brain that these skills require. So once they're able to show up as a better clinician, they are able to provide, support better outcomes for their clients, which means more client retention, right? So on the business side of things, they're also able to feel more confident in the offers that they are providing to their clients, offering to their clients their product suite. My business coach calls it a product suite. So making sure you have offers at all different levels of accessibility, whether it's low cost or high ticket. And then also feeling more confident in the way that they are marketing these things with their communication skills, whether that is on social media or whether that is, in person at networking events. And then lastly, again, on the business side of things, they're able to, have better reach on social media. They're able to have better conversions on social media. So it's really cool to see.
Where's the best place for people to follow along and potentially connect with you?
You can follow me on both Instagram and TikTok at Wholesome Chick Nutrition. And you can also visit my website, www.wholesomechicknutrition.com.
There we go. Kate, before we wrap up, we're going to play one final game. I'll
Okay.
give you two options that practitioners face all the time, and you just pick either or. So you pick one. And once again, no explanations. All right. Perfect. So more clients or higher paying clients?
Higher paying clients.
Growth at all costs or growth that's sustainable?
Growth that's sustainable.
Building a big audience or building deep trust?
Building deep trust.
Working with anyone who inquires or only your ideal clients?
Ideal clients.
Being known in your industry or being profitable behind the scenes?
Being profitable behind the scenes.
Posting daily or posting only when it's valuable?
Posting when it's valuable. These are so hard.
Scaling faster or protecting your well-being?
Protecting your well-being.
One big launch or steady monthly clients?
Steady monthly clients.
Business success or personal freedom?
Personal freedom.
And then the final one, respect from peers or results for clients?
Results for clients.
Awesome. Kate, that was incredible. I think that every practitioner listening just walked away with both strategy and reassurance that their story can really be the foundation of a thriving business. So thank you for being so open and sharing so generously. For anyone who wants to connect with Kate, we'll link everything in the show notes below. And as always, don't just listen. Take one thing from this conversation and put it into action. We'll see you in the next one.